This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
GPS, happy Sunday morning. It's been a while since we've done this on a Sunday morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you for flexing a little bit on the schedule. We both had a little bit of a hectic Saturday, so nice to do this on a Sunday for once.
Yeah, and your hectic Saturday involved the little ones, so...
Yeah, it involved quite a few little ones, as a matter of fact, as the way it unfolded. So, yeah, it was a successful birthday party. So thank you very much for flexing for me.
No problem. No problem. You know, you've been all over the news, literally managing news this week. What is the story that has most intrigued you this week?
Well, I mean, there have been quite a few. I would say the one that I've been most interested in myself has probably been, I don't know. I mean, there's so many to pick from, but I think Gilbert Arenas has got to be kind of the leader in the clubhouse for me. I'm not sure that it's necessarily the biggest news per se, but it's been the one that's kind of captured my imagination. And
do you want to give people a download on that and the high stakes?
Sure. Quite literally high stakes. Yeah. So Gilbert Arenas is alleged in a federal indictment of running and conspiring with alleged Israeli mob bosses, running a high stakes poker game, which featured scantily clad women serving drinks and possibly quite a bit more, depending on who you believe, at an Encino, I believe, mansion. Might be off on the city there, but I believe it's Encino. And the federal indictment came down. Arenas was arrested along with the Israeli mob boss and 4 or 5 other guys in a pre-dawn raid. And the indictment features pictures of a poker table that says Arenas Poker Club and has a depiction of a figure wearing an Arenas number 0 jersey from behind. So it doesn't feature his face, but it certainly features the uniform for which he is famous. Gilbert Arenas is famously dubbed Agent Zero during his time in the NBA and was kind of bounced out of the NBA after a scandal that involved firearms. So it's a shocking indictment. Arenas was released on $50,000 bail and put a message on Twitter that was rife with spelling errors, where he claimed that he had nothing to do with it and that it was just a house that he had rented. Having read the indictment, okay, let's go with that. But yeah, it's compelling. It's certainly a very interesting story.
I'm very fascinated to see how it unfolds, because his immediate reaction, as you maintained, was, or described, I should say, was that he was nothing more than a landlord,
homeowner. Yeah, I mean, basically, he said, I rented the house and that's it. Which okay, that's certainly a position to take.
If you rent your house out, somebody knows they're renting it from Gilbert Arenas.
Maybe they use your depiction and try to profit off that.
And try and profit off it. It would not be the first time.
No.
You could, I know you're not supposed to do this because it's not part of the Bail Reform Act, but I always say if they're letting a guy out for $50,000, that kind of speaks volumes, but that's just the cynic in me.
Sure. Yeah. And, you would hope that, it certainly is plausible, and it would not be the first time that somebody else had used the depiction of a famous person to try to profit. So if I'm taking him at his word that he was strictly a landlord and he rented out a house and somebody else got up to shenanigans that he wasn't even aware of, then, that's plausible. And I agree with you. That does not seem like a high bail amount for a judge to allow if what is alleged is on solid grounds.
And there's also the other thing. I have watched, back when I first started practicing, they actually prosecuted city attorney's office, mind you, not the DA, but the city attorney who has jurisdiction over the misdemeanors in Los Angeles, used to prosecute bookie cases for being a bookie. I mean, can you imagine that today, prosecuting somebody for being a bookie?
No, it seems very hard to believe when you consider that your bookie is in your pocket.
That's exactly what I mean. You got to the point where you've got DraftKings and you've got all kinds of other gambling out, the Barstool Sports and you could go on and on.
Yeah, even ESPN has got a component of it as well.
ESPN, the NFL is involved in gambling, and the idea somehow that you're going to criminalize high stakes poker games, even if it were true, at somebody's private home, just strikes me as a little look over here. We don't want you looking over here.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. But it was shocking. So it's a story that we've been following closely.
I love it. And Michelle did a write-up on it, too, as I remember, I read this week. Yeah.
I don't know whether or not you meant also there, but she has done two pieces so far. Yes. Michelle has been very on top of this.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that she was doing a first person at the table.
No, not at all. But you said Michelle did a write-up, too, and I wasn't sure if you were placing a comma there because Michelle has done two separate write-ups. She did the first one after the pre-dawn raid, and then we found another connection where the poker game is at least tangentially related to a missing person story that Michelle has been following for a long time from downtown Los Angeles several years prior, and we found a connection there. So she wrote a second piece which sort of put those two together, and that was her second foray into the story.
Next time, if I was more prepared, I'd have her on here to tell us all of the connections. But
maybe in the future. I think Sunday morning is not necessarily. It might be above the pale.
Okay, and then the other two stories that I thought were interesting this week. Number one, Kamala Harris not running for governor of the state of California. What did you think of that?
I think you could put that another way, that Kamala Harris thinks she's running for president.
Interesting. I think for California, that's an uptick. I guess the speculation now is if she's not running, Villaraigosa, who used to be the mayor of LA, is running. Betty Yee is running. And
I think there's another name running that you haven't gotten to yet.
Rick Caruso hasn't thrown his hat in the ring yet. I mean, it seems to be, although I will tell you, there's a picture that he posted of him and Willie Brown. Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Yeah, and I thought that if that isn't the best hint for which way he may be leaning between mayor of LA and governor of California, that would. So Willie Brown is not known for anointing mayors of LA, but certainly on statewide politics and up north he is. And there it is. Very good, Gary. That is the mayor himself and Rick Caruso. And they're pointing, it looks like, to the Capitol in Sacramento.
That does look like the Sacramento State House. As someone who has visited it a few times in person, I would be shocked if my recollection is off. That appears to be the Sacramento State House. Yeah.
And Rick Caruso has upped his appearances. Great work in terms of what he's doing in the Palisades and what he's been doing in terms of kind of pushing an agenda to get things done from the outside, not being a politician. He famously lost to Karen Bass.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, after the fires, there's a lot of people, at least in my world, who I don't know about yours because you're behind the orange curtain, but at least in my world, there's a lot of people who seem to be having second thoughts on that.
I would say that there is certainly some buyer's remorse amongst those who I work with.
Could we be any more diplomatic about this?
I mean, that's about the nicest way I could think to put it. I did that on purpose. So, yeah, I would say, given that Rick, at least one, and I believe maybe two of his children lost their homes in the Palisades fires. And, he's got the developments there in the Palisades as well as all over the other parts of Los Angeles. I think that he, after the loss and some of the remorse that people may be feeling, he's probably got some very solid footing on which to run for higher office.
Yeah, governor. I always thought governor made more sense than mayor at this stage.
Especially mayor of Los Angeles, given the unique way Los Angeles politics are set up. Mayor of Los Angeles is not necessarily a mayor in the way that you would be in different large cities in America. So I think governor makes a lot more sense for someone like Rick.
Yeah, I personally like Antonio a lot. And as somebody who's been downtown for going on my 5th decade and who was actually born in downtown LA, he, of all the times and all the mayoral runs, his was coincided with, I think, probably the best, the best times that I can remember in recent history of downtown LA.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not Rick gets into the fray there. And if not, Antonio might be a very good option as well. He's, sort of been out of the limelight and is not associated with a lot of these recent shenanigans that have been going on in Los Angeles. So he might have a very strong backing as well. I would think he would.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Then the other story that kind of intrigued me is that you've been hearing about, and it first started with Tulsi Gabbard, and then it's gone to John Ratcliffe, and these stories about whether it's Clapper or Brennan or Comey and the criminal investigations or referrals that have been made. But one of the ones that I thought was interesting this past week, I don't know if you saw it, where they're now investigating Hatch Act, which are using kind of political considerations and nonpartisan situations against, guess who? Jack Smith, the former special counsel for Trump. That is, I wouldn't call that breaking news, but it's a interesting legal development.
Yeah, I have seen that. I've not delved into it deeply, so I wouldn't pretend to be able to have an intelligent conversation with you about it. But I've seen the headlines, and that is certainly something that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a. If you take a step back, it's a fascinating, just kind of a pendulum swing of the idea of the person who was coming after the former president, and now the current president is now coming after the person who was coming after him. They've interestingly, one of the grounds that they're talking about and that has been bandied about is the classified documents situation and the testimony that's been developed that shows, for those who don't remember, all of those pictures of here's the classified documents we found down in Mar-a-Lago, and there was a lot of speculation about that. Before Trump was elected, I believe Aileen Cannon, in fact, I'm positive of it because Aileen Cannon had dismissed that case and found that the special counsel had gotten over their skis and that there was no constitutional underpinnings for that, which, by the way, she had embraced the Clarence Thomas concurrence in a SCOTUS case. And in full disclosure, I had used the same argument for Hunter Biden, that the special counsel has no authority and no constitutional underpinnings. I still believe that. And although Hunter ended up getting pardoned and we didn't, the judge didn't reach the merits of the case in LA, Aileen Cannon certainly did. And I think they appealed it, but as I remember, and I could be wrong, maybe a listener will tell me, I believe they appealed it to the 11th Circuit, but I think it just languished there, and I don't think anybody ever got anywhere. So the controlling law, to the extent that a district court is ever controlling, is that the special counsel statute doesn't have a constitutional underpinning there, because in the Biden case, he didn't reach his honor didn't reach the merits.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it as well.
Yeah, it's quite a fascinating week and quite a range here. We'll be back next week, and maybe we'll record Saturday so that we can get Michelle to come on and see if there's any new happenings, because the Arenas case is fascinating to me, as it is to you, obviously. I thank you for bringing that up, because the whole idea of that the high stakes gambling, I guess, is what is the catch-all. But there are so many issues surrounding that in terms of prosecuting that criminally, that I think it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, I do too. I think that it's going to be there are more than enough avenues for someone who is going to look to defend Arenas. I think some of the other people involved may have different challenges ahead of them, but I think that Arenas has quite a few avenues to say, look, yes, maybe on paper I own the house, and maybe somebody made a table that had my jersey on it, but try to tie me to it specifically. And I think that's going to be an uphill battle.
Well, and Michelle loves doing stories where there's people that are called mob bosses, whatever the ethnicity is. And I push back on that on occasion. And about successive bail hearings that I've done over the years. And I remember one where a judge had said, or the prosecutor had actually said, he later became a judge, that my client was the number 2 man in whatever ethnic criminal organization this was. And I said, this is the 4th time I've had the number 2. What do I have to do to get the number 1? Because I can, the fee could be also upgraded as well.
Well, you stay close to Michelle, and I'm sure you can get the number 1.
Yes, but you always have to remember the separation of church and state.
Absolutely. That was just mostly to make you smile. So
thank you. I appreciate that. You made my morning.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you very much for adjusting so that I could have some family time, and making some time for us here on a Sunday so we could get it out to the listeners as scheduled. We'll see you next week, and we look forward to it.
Thanks, Gary. Good to see you, and happy birthday to a little one.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.